Now I'll admit I have a lot of cell phones. I also have a lot of smartphones that are very affordable, and here are some of them. Now, I have a bunch of smartphones, but these are kind of my pocket-friendly phones that are technically in the US. I know you're probably saying, Jay, I know you have more phones than this. I do. I have a lot of phones out there that are not technically for the US, but work in the US, that are very affordable, but a lot of people might not want to import a phone. So all of these phones right here, you can grab them in the US at a fantastic price. And so I often wonder, and here's one more. This is the Blade X from ZTE. I was kind of sitting around and I thought, man, why am I still buying phones that are super expensive? Why am I doing it? Well, for me, my reasoning is because I do product reviews. Other than that, I probably wouldn't purchase some of my high-end phones like the X, the iPhone X, the Note 8, the Moto Z, just any of the phones that I have, the Essential phone, all of those phones, I probably would not purchase them if I were just an average consumer and I just wanted a phone that worked. Well, that's what all of these phones have in common. Another thing these phones have in common are the build quality. And I say that to say this. If I drop either one of these phones, I don't think they'll shatter on the first try. Most of these have a metal chassis and some form of plastic on them. And so, of all these phones, I'm trying to figure out which phone I want to take to CES with me. So I'm sitting around and I'm thinking, man, you know, I have a lot of phones, and here's why I'm thinking about taking one of these phones to CES. And you're probably thinking, Jay, you have so many phones. These are the phones that you're going to take to CES? Well, the answer is probably yes. Can't even fit them in the frame. However, there's a reason for that. If you've never broken a phone, then you don't understand. If you've never lost a phone, then you don't understand. I don't like to lose a device that costs $300 to $1,000. Now, granted, I haven't done that yet, but I've definitely broken my share of them. Now, predominantly they've been iPhones falling at a very short distance and cracking just like nothing. But I've also cracked other phones and broken other phones. They just kind of slid out of my pocket as I was getting out of the car. That seems to be kind of the most common thing. So all of these phones right here, I've dropped these at one point or another. They either got just a nick or they didn't get anything and I picked it up and it kept working. And that was without a case. So this phone right here is the Blade X, and this is one of ZTE's latest offerings. Now, I do use this phone, and I've been using it. And the reason I'm using it is because sometimes when I go to certain places, I take certain phones with me. So if I were going to, say, a basketball game or football game, I'd grab one of these for sure. Because if I lose one of these phones, I won't feel so bad. If I drop one of these phones and it actually does break, I won't feel so bad. Those are some of the key things. And another thing, these phones don't cost a lot of money. These are pretty much all under 200 bucks. Yeah, I think they're either at 200 or less. And that's a huge plus. So if you're out in your smartphone buying game, you're trying to get into the smartphone, I could recommend any of these phones. And I have a ton of other phones that are not technically for the US, but I just can't flat out recommend them to you because a lot of people won't want to do the importing. You won't want to deal with that. So some people ask me, you know, what about phones that are in the US? Well, here's a bunch of them that I have, or some of them that I have right here. And these phones are all good in their own right. They're all good. Now, predominantly, you see a lot of ZTE phones. Actually, you see a lot of ZTE phones around the edge. And you've got some LGs, some Motorola's, some Samsungs. Samsung doesn't have a lot of phones that I'm interested in that are in the US. Probably pretty much other than this thing right here. This is one of the best Samsung phones I have ever owned. I say that with complete confidence because it has an Exynos processor in it. It's still selling very well and it's very affordable. Affordable phones are something that we should all invest in because the people who are not buying smartphones, they're winning. But the strange part is I've seen people with broken screens or broken, cracked up, beat up phones on some of these pocket-friendly phones, and then they still don't want to buy another phone. Those people are using their phones to the best of their abilities, and they're trying to save as much money as possible. And that's what these phones are about, saving money. I like these phones, and I dislike something about probably all of these phones. But all of them have so many high points that it's understandable why people still buy these. Now, this discussion is pretty much about pocket-friendly phones that offer lots of high-end features. I'm holding this one in particular because this is probably the latest one of all these besides the LG. And the LG doesn't have features that this one has. Now, the LG actually has the 18:9 ratio, but it still has USB 2.0, which is such a disappointment for such a great phone. But it still has turbocharging. This phone actually has Type-C and a fingerprint reader. That's a huge plus. This phone is very affordable. Very affordable. All these phones have something in common to where I could recommend any of these. And some of you guys watching this video right now, you have one of these phones or you have multiple versions. You have multiple of these phones. You got this one and this one, or you got this one and this one, or you got these two, or you got these two. Something. You have multiple pocket-friendly devices. But of all these phones, of using all these phones, I found myself gravitating back to this one for some reason. I don't know what it is. Probably because I like the Blade Z Max so much. This reminds me of a smaller version of that. It has that same texture, but with less grip. And then also it has a fingerprint reader, it has a really decent camera, it has Type-C, it has a headphone jack. There's just things about it that I'm surprised that more people don't buy phones like this. Some people told me, they say, well, Jay, I'm happy that you review these budget-friendly devices on your channel. Well, I do that because I actually use them. I'm not doing it just for like a sales pitch or something like that. I do get a lot of things in for review, but I don't just leave it at that. I actually use the devices to the best of my ability and try to put them into my daily grind because I feel like you guys deserve to know. Now, this particular phone right here, I've had it for just over a month and a half, and it is rolling strong. I don't have any issues with it. I'm loving the screen. I mean, look at the screen quality for yourself. Some 720p displays are fantastic because a lot of people still have 720p display TVs. I still have a couple of them, you know, just laying around using them for old monitors and things like that. But this is where we are. I don't think we'll ever see a decrease in 720p, 1080p screens. I hear a lot of people say every now and then, oh, 1080p is the new 720p, or 720p screens should be dead already. In reality, there are going to be a ton of phones produced in the 18:9 ratio that are 720p, just to keep the cost down and give you a $50 phone. Now, this phone right here is $200. It's about $220, but it has that new 18:9 ratio. Has a really premium feel to it. But it also costs you just over $200, and then $300 if you get the unlocked with the 64 and it's a bunch of different variations. But $200, you can grab that phone right there, or even less, like I did. I caught it when it was on sale for $180, and then I have some coupons, so I got it for even less. But a phone like this just launches at a low price. Period. Now, it is a carrier branded phone, but a lot of people, you need a carrier. So phones like this, I can recommend all day. I can recommend any phone on this table all day. They're all good in their own right, and they all will save you a ton of money, and they all can do pretty much the basics. Yes, I'm getting to the big dogs. They can pretty much do the same thing that these two can do right here. It's just that these cost, you know, so strange. All of these phones on this table still don't cost more than these. That's crazy. It is what it is, though. But what I could tell you is that purchasing one of those phones I just brought into view, it's a good look if you can afford it or you're willing to do it. I'm not going to knock you for it because I do it. But if you don't need some of the features that are in those phones and you just need social media, phones that you can do social media with a great screen, some decent cameras, fantastic battery life, that I'll say, pretty much all these phones on this table can beat out the battery life on both of those phones. Some of them more than others, like this phone, this one I'm holding, this one. You know, I think pretty much all these phones, with the exception of this LG, this probably has the weakest battery of every phone on this table and the one I'm holding. However, all these phones can pretty much beat out the battery life on those. And what good is a phone if it looks good but it dies and you have to charge it all the time? Think about that. So I want to do a quick discussion video because someone asked, hey Jay, you know, well, they made a statement, say, Jay, I'm happy that you do videos on phones like this that don't cost a lot, because a lot of us are still buying these phones and these are our daily drivers. I hear people say, oh, that'd be a good backup phone. Well, okay, if you're holding a $1,000 phone, why do you need several backup phones? Well, it could be for a number of reasons. Like me, you might be a person who doesn't want to take their expensive phone out every now and then. But what is the joys of having this fantastic phone if you're too afraid you're going to break it and you can't enjoy it? So I think a lot of people buy phones like this for that reason. For that reason alone. They'll continue to buy phones like this because I can buy another one of these for less than the cost of an insurance deductible for one of the phones that costs $1,000, $800. It's just a fact. So it's your man Jay Will. Are you using any of these phones? What do you think about them? Are you planning on buying any of these phones? Do you buy high-end phones? Can you get them in the view? I could zoom up higher, but I don't want to. But I just wanted to make a quick video to let you guys know, yes, I'm still using all of these phones, believe it or not. The SIM card that's in here is my Cricket SIM, and all of these phones on the table are unlocked, so I can use them wherever. I can pop the SIM card in all of these phones and use them, and I'm super happy to do so. Some of these phones, like this phone is built like a tank, man. This phone got no love all of a sudden just because it didn't get 7.0 or any Android updates, I should say, Oreo and things like that. However, that phone runs like a champ. Dropped it multiple times. Screen's a little scratched up, but hey, it still works. And it's still crystal clear too. But this has quickly become one of my favorite phones of the budget realm. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels. The cameras are decent. I'm feeling it. It's got some high-end features like Type-C and fingerprint reader, headphone jack. The essentials. So it's your man Jay Will. Which one of these do you use? Do you ever plan on switching to a very expensive phone like some of these I'm going to show you, like these ones I showed you earlier? You ever plan on switching to any of these? Pause for the thumbnail. Okay, I think I got it. Do you ever plan on switching to a device like this? Or are you going to stay with the ones on the table? It is up to you. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.